Welcome to the Two Act Podcast. I'm gothjon. Who else am I speaking with?
Hello, I'm Adi.
Awesome, Adi. So we're going to talk about Saw 2004. Are you familiar with the film?
Yes, I am. Quite a cult classic, as many people of the horror genre would say.
You could say it really brought horror movies back into the movie theaters. There was a Saw that came out every year, every couple of years for many years. It had a budget of $1 million to 1.2 and a box office of 103 million, which I think is kind of astounding. You can see why we have 10 Saws, even though there's like a big gap in the last three. So I listened to the commentary with two of the actors with, I cannot even try to pronounce his name. It's Leigh Whannell, Carrie Elwes, and James Wan in the Saw Uncut. Sounded like they were having a really good time. They were having a laugh. It seemed like they had a lot of fun making this movie. And it was very enjoyable to listen to. And then I rewatched the movie because I've seen this movie like 40 times. There's a lot of things that you can really enjoy in this movie. Like, we're not watching this because it's an Oscar-nominated film. We're watching this because it's my favorite horror movie. Or slasher, or whatever you want to call it. So was there anything that you enjoyed in this movie, Adi?
I gotta say, it's this film is an accomplishment, and I can appreciate it for what it is. It's an independent film, very much feels like a low budget endeavor in the horror genre, and I guess it kicked off this whole new movement in the horror franchise, which saw, no pun intended, which saw like slasher or torture porn.
Yeah, you could compare like there was a Jesus movie that came out that was like levels of Saw. Somebody would describe that, and then that's a whole thing. Like there's.
Are you talking about the Passion of
the Christ? Yeah. They were like, oh man, like there was a stand-up comedian, Patton Oswalt. He was just like, man, I was watching Passion of the Christ, and the violence in like that is like in Saw. And then when you watch Saw, you're like, oh, he's being hyperbolic. But yes, no, it's a whole thing with the genre. It has a lot of references, and even something stupid like Scary Movie. They'll do like a Saw reference in one of the movies. It's been a big culture stone. There's been a lot of movies that have taken this genre previously, like Cube, or even something more current like Escape Room, where they have these rooms where you're trying to escape and you're trying to find piece all the clues of how you got there, why you got there, if you can even survive. It's a winnable game. Like in future Saw installments, some of the traps aren't winnable. At least in the first one, all the traps are winnable. Like you either have to cut out your eye to get the key behind your eye, or in this one, you gotta dig out of someone's guts for a key to unlock a reverse bear trap on your head.
Those were all crazy scenes, and this film, I guess, I know a lot of people in the horror genre will enjoy the violence and the gore, but personally, I loved how much of a psychological thriller this film was, and it had some really clever plot devices in the script that made it interesting. And I love the fact that it's a serial killer that keeps you on your toes throughout the film, and you're kind of deducing what direction it's going to head into and who the killer might be. And it reminded me a lot of the film Seven, which is the David Fincher film. I'm not sure if it's actually inspired by that, but I could pick up a lot of references.
I could see James Wan being inspired by that. He's like a little indie director. I'm sure he took a lot from other, in his, at least his first one, they tried not to do jump scares, which became like an entire thing of this genre, which I hate. It's just a loud sound. You don't need a random alarm clock going off or somebody knocking on a window. They even say that in the commentary. They're like, "Oh, I hate those. At least if you're gonna scare me, at least show something scary on the screen. Don't make it dumb."
I couldn't agree more. Like personally, the horror, I got to be honest, I'm not a massive hardcore consumer of horror, but the horror that I enjoy and love to watch are those that challenge you, that use atmosphere and sort of, yeah, challenges the viewer to keep you on your toes. And the horror needs to be earned. I'm sure a lot of people enjoy jump scares because, ironically enough, a lot of people find it funny, and that's why they enjoy it. You know, not everyone, not everyone's a fan of jump scares because it's scary, but just because it's funny. I know my brother goes off whenever there's a jump scare. He just finds it hilarious because it's almost like a running joke, a running gag with some horror films. But no, this one.
Oh, yeah.
This one, on the other hand, I thought the horror was really good. I love the fact that it was a serial killer, and yeah, the whole Jigsaw character, very fascinating. I think we gotta agree, it's one of the most iconic like horror characters out there.
For sure. John Kramer. Just another one of the horror movie legends, like Michael Myers. One of those myths. And it's funny how these movies get really silly towards the end. It goes, you know how this movie is very serious and it takes itself very well? Well, this movie goes off the deep end after like Saw 4. It starts cutting into the realm where it's parody. It starts just becoming, it knows it's silly. That's why I like this one so much, because it really shows what... not necessarily slow burn, but the horror of it. You know, you're chained to a pipe. You're wondering why you're in there. You're wondering how the hell do you get out? And you see a dead guy in the middle of the room, and you're just wondering, you know, why am I in this predicament? And they're slowly like thinking a lot in this movie. I feel like there isn't a lot of wasted time. Like they're showing you something. They're setting a scene. They're really showing you why these characters are here and really what they're going through.
I gotta agree. Like the whole premise, this is such a clever script that shows you that you don't necessarily need to have an expansive sets, crazy budgets, or insane props and stuff like that. Like the whole premise pretty much revolves around these two men who are trapped in this bathroom and dilapidated room, which looks, I mean, really dilapidated.
They did a really good job making it look dilapidated. Yeah,
very good job indeed.
Makeup in this film is pretty believable. Like the guy in the middle of the room, he looks like he shot himself in the head. Like
that's something I never saw coming, but that was completely believable.
When you watch it for the first time, it's the plot twist. It's the reason why we have 10 Saws. It's just like they did something like M. Night Shyamalan. What a twist! But they did it in such a way that like you're already starting to like piece it together, and then that happens.
It's comparable to that big twist in The Sixth Sense for me, I think.
Okay, or like in 7.
Or 7 as well.
Yeah,
it's just shocking.
Like
7 is most shocking. I think like the twist in 7 was horrifying, right? And the twist in The Sixth Sense is like your jaw drop moment. Right. But I feel like this. What? I feel like this got both.
Right.
It was jaw dropping and horrifying, and that's why it's so cool because, I mean, it blows my mind that the whole story takes place in this one room where the killer is right in front of you and you have no idea that he's right there the whole time. That's impressive to me.
Yeah, I really like the sounds in Saw, like the chains rattling, or some of the other like sounds that they added in post that they sound really real. Like even like the tricycle like moving, like it's kind of like ew. Yeah. James Wan actually made that puppet that moves its mouth.
Oh, did he?
Does the voice? Yeah.
Wow.
And I don't know if he named it or the fans named it. The puppet's name is Billy, and it features in most of the films in some form or another, even the bad films.
And there's also another puppet, which is a pig, isn't it? Like
Yep,
it's got,
yep, the pig mask. Yep,
yeah.
they put that on when they kidnap him.
Is that also another recurring character in the series?
Yeah, and all the Saws, it definitely is. So they sometimes in the Saw films they'll show you how they get the people there, and it's usually one of the people, not necessarily Jigsaw. You know, one of Jigsaw's acolytes in the future Saw installments. They especially Saw 2 and 3, they really show you, okay, well, one guy didn't do all this. He incorporated other characters. Amanda Young, the lady that survives the reverse bear trap, she comes back and she's like, I want to work for you. I was a drug addict. And then,
Oh, really? Okay.
She becomes a Jigsaw apprentice in the second film. And I don't expect us to cover all the Saw films because that's a Herculean task
in itself.
then there's another. Well, it's probably over 20 hours of media. That's not really necessary. There's another Saw where the doctor from the first one, he survives somehow, and then he has a prosthetic foot, and that's when it starts to get silly. Like he should have probably bled out, just crawling out of there. And he becomes a Jigsaw acolyte, and and then he's incorporated, and then there's a police officer that becomes incorporated in it, and then that whole movie is straight up silly because they put a bunch of characters on a carousel, and the entire movie, I think it's Saw 4 or 5, where it's about the healthcare system and how corrupt it is in America. So you'll have a guy deciding who dies on a carousel with a shotgun, and he has to pull the trigger 3 times. And the funny thing about it is you hear the woman on there going, I'm pregnant, and then that's so fucking funny. And then the guy right next to her, no, she isn't, she's fucking lying. And then it just, you get the editing by I think its name's Kevin Gruder. It just starts really making the movie just doo doo doo.
Wow.
Yeah, these
I don't know what
silly.
it is. I don't know what it is with the horror franchises that obviously a lot of them, the first one's always catching lightning in a bottle if it's great, and then studios often want to cash in and really
gotta get
go on it.
Yeah, the funny thing
I feel
is
like
James
that's
Wan,
similar with James Wan with the Conjuring series, because I really enjoyed the first one, and now it's kicked off. I don't know if there's going to be more in the future.
There's way more. There already is way more. There's 4 or 5 of them. There's one about a nun or something, a haunted nun. That's
the nuns.
the
Yeah, I've
universe.
seen that.
Yeah,
I've seen that.
There's so many.
Not a fan.
Saying you're not a horror fan. You watched all these movies.
I enjoyed the Conjuring because the Conjuring
I don't
was
want to hear that
actually.
you enjoyed Paranormal Activity. That's all I want to hear. You didn't enjoy it.
Again, I've seen it, vaguely remember it, but I think the whole obsession with that, the popularity behind it was with the way it was shot, right? I think that's what people really, that's what got a lot of people talking about it, was his films entirely shot through security cameras. So
Yeah.
I can appreciate the effort, because if you want to make something, not a lot of people are going to be convinced to give you the money to make it. So you have to find your ways as a filmmaker to come up with your own unique, thrifty, sort of hustling ways of making independent film. Like the Blair Witch. And I think a lot of people compare the Saw and the Blair Witch, and you would say since the Blair Witch there wasn't really a horror movie that really got people talking it did until the first Saw film came out, in 2004. Which makes me want to ask you, when was the first time you watched it, and do you remember what your reaction was like?
So I was probably 16. It was probably a couple years later, because I know Saw 1 and 2 came out. It might have been 2006 or 7. And I found these DVDs. I really wanted to start getting into horror because I've always been a horror baby. Just seeing a Child's Play doll when I was young, it was no good. freaked me out. And so then I started becoming a teenager, and I started really getting into horror. My first foray into horror is Saw. It's that I watched.
It's got a special place in your heart.
Yeah, like I know these movies aren't sophisticated. They're not. There are parts of it that are good filmmaking, but I know this isn't an Oscar movie. This isn't. Definitely not.
No. Like, it doesn't need to be. It doesn't need to be.
No, it's good junk food. That's what I like to think of it as. It has some like thinky parts in it. It's got some good junk food. In fact, like going back to Saw, I really like the 6th scene where Zepp is using the stethoscope to listen to the kid's heartbeat while he's holding the gun. And I'm like, scenes like that just keep me engrossed in the movie, make me not want to play with my phone. Like I wanna see what's gonna happen next. It
was a tense scene.
Yeah, there's a lot of horror films that are like that. So the movie is made in the editing bay. Kevin Gruder, that's the name of the guy that edited most of the Saws. He edited pretty much every one of them except the Saw that has Chris Rock in it. That one isn't very good. It shows
Chris Rock in Saw. Okay.
Yeah. Sam Jackson's in the same movie. It's wild.
Whoa! Which Saw is that?
It's called Saw Spiral. Yeah, the Book of Saw. It has like a really goofy name, and so that movie has Chris Rock in it, and it has Sam Jackson in it, and there's no other reoccurring characters. I think Tobin Bell. It wasn't even in the movie, but it was like it's supposed to be 10 years later, and saying he's a copycat killer. And
all right,
that movie is straight up silly. Like, it's not silly in a good way. It's just a multi-million-dollar movie that's poorly made, which is unfortunate.
Why do you think that happens?
Oh, it's too many hands in the kitchen. Too many people thinking they know what a horror movie needs to be. What things make a horror movie. Like they'll say, and they'll do like audience viewings, and then they'll change the movie according to their questionnaires. I think it's a lot of screenings. It's too many cooks. There's too many people dictating how the movie's gonna be. That's when you don't have the director writer or director writer and another co-writer. That's what happened in the first Saw. One of the actors actually helped co-write it. That's why it's such a good script. James
because
Wan,
it's come from the artist directly.
Without
exactly. Any studio interference. Do you think that is the state of, when you look at the state of the current horror movie scene? Do you think that there needs to be more independent horror films?
Absolutely. There needs to be a lot more independent. They don't necessarily have to be low budget. But independent horror films, I like a lot of A24 slow burn horror. I like Hereditary. I like a lot
X.
of the Vavitch. Yeah, X is pretty wild. I still need to watch all the sequels and prequels to that. I just couldn't find it on my streaming.
Yeah, there's Pearl and Maxine, I believe, comes out later.
That sounds awesome.
This year.
Like I watched X, and I like Jenna Ortega, so I was like, ooh.
She's in a horror franchise for herself. Oh well, I don't know if she will be. Yeah, exactly, Scream. I believe it's 5 or 6.
Yeah, I watched that. I liked her in that. I liked her in Wednesday, of course. You know, I liked her in a lot of things. She's coming up. She's going to be in the new Beetlejuice. I'm okay her being. Now who knows where that movie's going to go? You brought Michael Keaton back from the dead to act in that, although he was really good in Birdman, so I don't think his acting.
Well, he even came back as Batman, but that
he even came back as Batman. Can you really say that might have been the best part of the Flash movie? But can you really say he came back?
It's a shame, because when you bring back such an iconic character, and that goes for horror movies also, and I'm talking about like. It doesn't necessarily only have to be Batman. You know, it could be the Scream,
Ghostface.
Ghostface. Yeah. It could be
Michael Myers. Could be
exactly.
Jason. Could be Freddy Krueger.
It's so easy to get them back, but really,
Right.
can you really recollect how many times they've got them back and done a
Yeah.
really good job and earned
Yeah.
that
Yeah. In fact,
character's.
I think you should, like Ghostbusters, you should let these old actors just collect their checks. You don't need to get them back. You don't, like Ghostbusters 1 and 2, amazing cinema. Anything after that, if I see Bill Murray in a Ghostbusters movie, I assume it's just going to be bad.
Whenever I
You,
see another Ghostbuster film, I just think like, why? Like, just
no,
let
no,
it go.
it is why. No, that is all studio. That's all. We're running out of ideas and we're hemorrhaging money. What could we make that could make us back some of our money? And then
Well,
some
why
of these
don't
movies
you
flop.
go and give money to, filmmakers like James Wan,
Right.
who were up and coming? Imagine
Right.
if he had the budget the Ghostbuster movies had
Right.
with the first Saw film. Do you think
It'd
that
been
would have
insane.
would it be a better film?
I don't think so. When you're scrappy, I feel like you get creative.
There's a rawness to it. There's an
Yeah,
edginess to it.
exactly. You have to figure out ways to make the movie good. You don't necessarily just have to throw CGI at it. And just because you throw money at a movie doesn't necessarily make it good. Like CGI and like
True.
let's say the Batman versus Superman, they spent millions of dollars editing out Superman's mustache because he wasn't going to shave
That's in
it
the
off.
Justice League.
Yeah, it's hard to keep track. It's in one of those movies. Like shave
That
off
was
his
a
mustache.
really poor job.
Yeah, it was really bad. CGI de aging. So they brought back Luke Skywalker and they made him way younger. Like some of the times, if he's not moving, it looks fine. But when you have him doing flips and shit, then it looks goofy.
It does. It
yeah.
just takes you out of it completely.
And you're like, oh yeah, I'm watching a movie. You shouldn't be doing that while watching a movie. You shouldn't be going, man, I'm watching a movie right now. You shouldn't be looking
the
at
whole point
your
of
watch.
watching a movie is to be completely is to lose track of time. You want to
Absolutely.
be in another world for a couple of hours. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, when that happens, it's never good.
Yeah, I really enjoy the progression in this first Saw film. How it's progressed with the tapes with the Playme. You're just like, oh, weird.
Very clever use of flashbacks because those
Yeah.
tapes are important pieces of plot device that
Exactly.
add context to it. And I think what's interesting is there's so few exterior shots in this film. I don't think there's any exterior shots. They're all indoor shots.
If there are some, it might be used very sparingly.
very sparingly, and it adds to that claustrophobic, creepy, sort of eerie atmosphere of the film. And the flashbacks do a good job because they're so well written. Often I have a lot of problems with the way people like to jump back and forth in time because
Well,
again,
they can't all
it's
be
another.
Tarantino.
It don't have to be Tarantino, but
Well,
the power of a
yeah.
flashback can be impressive if done correctly, but very mundane and jarring if pulled off in a repeated fashion that doesn't serve to the story. So I didn't feel that way with this. I thought they
Right.
did a really, really clever use of flashback with the characters, especially the Doctor.
Right. You just see his whole home life.
His home
And
life.
I
his
think
work life.
the girl that played his daughter did a really good job. Getting good kid actors is usually hard because they're kids.
That's true. That is an underrated performance because, I mean, the rules with kid actors is in itself very difficult. I believe they can't work over a certain number of hours,
Yep.
so
They
I can
gotta
only
do
imagine
school,
how
too. Yeah.
they need to have a chaperone, and there's so many other rules. So to imagine, you can imagine like what sort of a production nightmare it may have
Right.
been to shoot this thing because $1
Crap
million
out of kid.
back in the day is not a lot for this film.
No, not at all. And then days you have to shoot. I'm sure they shot it in maybe like 3 months with that.
They
amount
didn't
of
have a
money.
lot of time.
Yeah,
I
I
believe.
can't imagine. Yeah, there was some serious overacting, but that's not what you're here for. And it's kind of funny. Like some of the doctor's scenes where he's worried about his wife who's going like Diana, like it's straight up goofy, but it doesn't take me out of the movie because I'm really feeling the scene. Like I'm really just like wondering what's going on. I'm just like,
Yeah.
okay. All right.
No,
Is it easy?
I can definitely overlook that. I know there's a lot of moments like that, not only in the performance, but there's a scene where the detectives, detective Tap and Singh, they're going into the lair of the killer, Jigsaw's lair, and there's like mist in the warehouse, and well, that makes no sense because why would a warehouse have mist? like, where is this coming from? Like, clearly, it's done for the sake of creating.
Oh yeah, probably creating an atmosphere.
Yeah, I found that a bit goofy, and there's moments
Yeah.
like that. But it's then you have this unique vision with the way it's directed. Like if you pay close attention to the scenes in the bathroom, you see that Adam, the photographer, all his scenes are handheld. They're like really shaky handheld cam, and I think that kind of reflects that he's on edge. And then you see the shots of the doctor in the bathroom. They're all stable, all static shots, which because he's obviously a lot more level-headed. Yeah. So things like that I appreciate. I think there is a lot of underrated direction in this film, which works really well with the script. But then again, you've got those goofy moments, whether there's certain shots in the action which are really jarring. Some things are goofy, but I can overlook that. It's not a major deal breaker.
Camera work. Speaking of, I really like the first 3D around Amanda when she's in the reverse bear trap. It really shows her whole predicament, and then how the editing combined with that really like chops it up and makes it how frantic it is and how like no time she has. Like I really enjoy that. I feel like all these Saw movies are made strictly in the editing bay. Like they're shot and all that, but I really feel like if you don't have that editor, it really throws the movie apart. In fact, that's what Spiral doesn't have. It doesn't have Kevin Gruder to edit it, so it just doesn't feel like the same thing.
You could tell instantly that it's just not the same. Yeah,
no,
editing
this isn't
is
Saw. This is a bunch of people pretending to be like they're in a Saw film.
That's a shame when that happens because you want to retain the original creative team behind a franchise. Oh well, right. I don't think they intended it for it to be a franchise, and I'm sure.
Right, the first.
What do the filmmakers think about it? Looking back at it in retrospect,
I'm sure they got all their bags. Darren Lynn Bozeman, he did Saw 3 and 4, and he directed those, and he really wanted to make his own side project. He made his own side project. I'm sure he's happy. He made Repo the Genetic Opera. It's like a rock opera. I really enjoy that movie. But he made his side project. He either left with creative differences or they fired him. I'm not sure. But then Kevin Gruder comes back after Spiral to direct the Saw, I think Jigsaw and Saw 10, and it really shows because he's also editing them and really bringing it back to its roots.
Yeah, that's nice to hear that he did come back because it makes a difference. It makes
James Wan's long gone. His
career took off.
Yeah, he's doing goofy shit now. He's doing Aquaman. He's doing a movie
never
that
saw
I
that
love.
Coming.
Yeah, I never saw that coming either. Kind of like how James Gunn just like went straight into doing all those big DC movies and Marvel movies. Yeah,
I still find it funny that he directed, like James Wan directed a Fast and Furious movie.
Did he really? Okay.
Yeah, he
That's
did.
awesome.
He did, and it's unless I'm mistaken.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure.
He when he comes back for horror, that's when I enjoy it. It's kind of like when Sam Raimi does horror. It's just like, ooh, that feels good when he comes back. Yeah, he did. There's this really goofy movie where it's about like this woman that has like her twin that was like killed at birth, like inside the back of her head, and it takes over her body. I can't exactly remember the movie name, but I know it's straight up so funny and so goofy Like there was like choreographed fight scenes where she's like fighting people with backwards.
Oh wow!
Awesome. It's awesome.
Oh no, I'm not sure. I remember what that is, but I'm confusing it for that movie Invisible, because it has a similar fight scene.
Right. Yeah, he did the first Insidious, and I think he was involved in the other Insidious movies. Like that first Insidious movie, that's straight up horror. That's straight up ghosts being spooky. Like I really enjoyed that.
Like a hardcore supernatural film.
Yeah.
Supernatural
Definitely.
horror.
And it's hard to make ghosts scary. We can't all be, like 13 Ghosts, like a classic. It's like that movie legit. Like I don't believe in ghosts, but that movie did creep me out for a couple of days. Like it's like, am I hearing creepy music playing? What is going on? Yeah. Yeah, I really enjoyed Amanda Young as a character. I just like her whole aesthetic. And I know what happens to her in the future films, so I enjoy her in Saw 2 and Saw 3. She does a lot of overacting, and I love it. It's just like, ooh, just delicious.
I was expecting her to pop up again later down in the
so
first.
She pops up in 2 and 3, and probably like a little bit of 4 in flashbacks. And then in Saw 10, she comes back. And so Saw 10's whole premise, spoiler alert if you haven't seen Saw 10, do you care if I spoil it?
Oh, no, please go ahead.
Okay, so Amanda Young comes back, and Saw 10 is entirely a prequel. He's like trying to get like some Mexican surgeons to like work on him, and Amanda Young comes back in the prequel. Obviously, they did not do a very good job with her makeup. She still looks old, but I don't care. She's back, and that whole movie is it really comes back to what Saw is. It's very methodical in his planning, Jigsaw's planning, and he sees everything coming. He knew that the person that was holding a gun at him was gonna do that, and like you're just like watching this movie and you're just like, okay, this is exactly what I wanted. I would recommend.
I gotta say that what's compelling about what I found compelling about Jigsaw was that he's not really a murderer himself, and he's found ways to manipulate people and get them to murder each other or kill themselves. So that as a concept was very interesting to see, because you can't really then call him a serial killer. He's more like a
sure you can.
Well, a sort of a sadist mastermind.
Yeah. Well, his entire like thing, like in all the Saw films, they really dig into like his survival from a car crash, and then finding out he has cancer, and he had to suffer so he could appreciate life, and he wants other people to suffer to appreciate life. Like that's like the whole like motif
the whole
across
moral
the Saw
thing.
films. Exactly, and he just feels like people take life for granted. And then that's how you have to like spin him into setting people up to kill themselves. Because you're going to either have to cut off your arm or you're going to die. Or you're going to have to dig out your eyeball or you're going to die. Or you're going to have to kill somebody else or you're going to die. Like it's a whole like moral choice. I really like the ending in this first Saw. After the time runs out, you're like, okay, well the time run out. They're fucked. The dude cuts off his foot. Like the doctor is just like, ah! And that is a brutal scene to watch. Like it's just like I clench my teeth whenever I watch that scene, just because they're like, ah! He's going crazy, and he like crawls out, and then the other guy comes in, and then Zepp is like trying to like kill Adam, and then Adam beats him over the head with the freaking. The
tile.
Toilet cover or whatever.
The lid.
And then he gets electrocuted, and then Jigsaw gets up, and then you hear the banana, banana, and he rips off the makeup. And
That's iconic.
You're like, oh shit!
Yeah,
Anybody in that theater, I'm sure, was
shit
screaming.
Scared.
Yeah. And then he gets up and he goes, "Game over!" And they do that in like the next like 6 consecutive Saw films. They have somebody going, "Game over!" and shutting the door on them. It's just iconic and just ending.
The shutting of the door got me. That was such a dreadful ending for Adam's character because you could just see him scream. But it's interesting you brought up that scene where the doctor cuts himself. I wanted to talk about that because a lot of in a lot of horror movies today, or a lot of action like ultra violent films, you just see the guy chopping his leg off or like cutting it off. Like you'd see the gore, you'd see the blood. But what's interesting about this film in particular, that scene, you see him, like there's just a quick shot of him, obviously the blade cutting his leg, and then it cuts away to a close-up of his face, and that itself, he's biting the cloth in his mouth, and he's chopping his leg off, and you could see foot off, and you could see like how painful and dreadful that scene is. And similarly, even earlier in the film, where the detectives get into Jigsaw's lair, you see that when Jigsaw is running away and he's being chased by Detective Singh, he gets killed by a shotgun trap, which basically, I believe it chops his head off, right?
Something like
but you don't
that.
really.
Yeah, he's super dead.
Yeah, he's super dead. But you don't really see his head explode. You just see the shot is cut up until his neck. And I know like a lot of it is budget because they didn't have the budget to show all those details.
A practical effect that would explode.
Yeah, and if they did try to do it in a practical way, it would probably look even more goofy. But the good thing is they didn't need to do it. They worked the way they worked the choreography of the camera movement and the way they staged the scene and shot it. I thought that brought out more of an effect of the violence and the horror than actually if they even had CGI or if they had some sort of hyper realistic special effects to show all those gruesome scenes. So I wanted to highlight that kind of worked in his favor in this film.
All
the
right,
fact that
the budget.
it was. It does because it makes you. I can relate to it because I remember I had to shoot a short film of my own and direct it in a small studio, and it was a similar thing where we wanted to work with more space, but we just had a room and we had to use mirrors to create the illusion of the room being bigger. So I think it does affect you when you're tasked with limitations. As a filmmaker, it pushes you to think out of the box, and I'm sure that was the case with this film. I could see it. I can see it in various instances. Yes, there's moments where you think, that looks very dated. That especially looking at it in 2024, that's like what 20 years.
It's 20 years.
It's been 20 years. That's crazy for a film to still be remembered 20 years down the line. That truly makes it a cult classic in a way, but. I think that's my point is like that is what makes it great. The fact that they had limitations, they had a great script, a great premise, and they managed to work around those limitations and push themselves out of the box. That's what makes this film stand out, in my opinion, compared to most horror films today, where they have the budget, they have the CGI, they have all these things to play with. But they're not memorable. That's the problem. Yeah, they get lost in... You look at the Netflix catalogs, you look at the Prime catalogs, there's endless recommendations with B, C, D grade horror films that get just lost in recommendations. But it's so hard to stick out. It's okay to be a low-tier film, but it's important to have...
Everybody remembers the Velociraptor and the Pastor Raptor and the shark, the evil shark, like all these movie titles. Like
Sharknado.
There's like a whole thing where they combined Exorcist and another word, and that's the movie. That's the title. That's just where we have gotten to. It's all shovelware, and now it's all on Netflix. It's all on Prime. It's all on
It's a
Hulu.
shame.
You're gonna check it out. You're gonna watch 10 minutes of it. Unless you're really into a really bad movie, you ain't gonna enjoy it.
Yeah, it's a shame that that's what it's come down to, because you can easily be lost in that sea of content that people put out, direct to video films and stuff like that. But no, I still have hope. I still think, when you see studios like A24 really give the filmmakers the creative vision and freedom to work with, I think it's possible that there's still films that can come out and captivate audiences.
Oh, absolutely.
With a low budget. It does not matter. It's not a hindrance at all, and we've seen it. Ari Aster, look at him. He's completely blown up now as a horror film director with Midsummer, and now he did like Beau's Afraid, and yeah, it all it takes is that one film. You just need to do that.
Your one creative breakout that's masterfully done. Yeah, that becomes a cult classic in its own. Yeah, like you said, Saw's been around for 20 years. That makes us all old, by the way. And we are very happy that we don't have Saw 20. Who knows how bad that could be? That might not even be so bad it's good.
Do they plan on making more Saw films?
Oh, yeah. They already have Saw 11 on the docket. They already announced the release date.
Wow.
It's already coming out. Which, if Kevin Gruder's directing it, I might even go to the cinema to watch it.
Will James Wan ever come back?
That would be funny if he did. And now I'm sure he's like a multi-millionaire by now, I'm sure. I think he's too busy doing Aquaman 3 or something like that. I'm sure that's already been canned because of Amber Turd and all that, but yeah, no.
Aquaman 2 was I don't think it did well. I think they ended it. They ended the whole universe.
Okay, I didn't even see it. It didn't seem that appetizing.
Nah.
Are you recommending Aquaman 2? Should I put that on as a watch?
Only if you have absolutely nothing to watch. I'm not a fan of the Aquaman films. I
definitely do have things to watch. I finally got around to watching more things, so there are plenty of things to watch. I'm not paying $25 for Dune 2 though. I'll wait.
Dune 2, yeah, that's another great. I think it's one of the best films of the year, and that's how you do an adaptation. So definitely
looking forward to it when it's not $25.
I'm sure it'll come out soon.
They gotta milk out their money. I did end up watching Poor Things on Hulu. That's a trippy movie. It's wild.
It is. It's a bold movie. That's a big swing.
Not a movie you watch with your kids. That's for sure.
No.
It's a lot of gratuitous sex scenes. I was kind of surprised. Like, I heard a little bit of it, and I was just like, I was almost thinking it was going to be like one of those X-Hub video searches or something, or I was like expecting that almost. But then I watched it, and I was like, okay, this is a trip. I enjoy it.
It is a massive trip, but it works, and the film found great success. Emma Stone won an Oscar.
Woo!
So, yeah, it's just become one of those films that it was delayed for 2 years. It was like
really?
They filmed it like in 2020 or something. So they waited a while for it to come out just because of the pandemic and all of that. But
I'm fine with that. Just like the Nintendo dev said, a game released early is always bad, but a game released late isn't necessarily bad. It said something along those lines. But you could do that with a movie too. You don't necessarily...
You can, but that's what makes it more fascinating when you see films like Ty West's X series, where he did the first X film and then he shot the prequel back to back, because again they were shooting in New Zealand during COVID, and once they wrapped up with X, they were like, fuck it, let's just make a prequel while we're here. We got the sets, we've got the locations already, and they shot. Well, they didn't really. They did change the actors because it's set. It's set back in time. Mm-hmm. It's set back in time. So the main character, she's still there, but it's a good film. And then they shot the sequel, which is set in it's called Maxine, and it's set in, I believe, the current age, if I'm not mistaken, because the X is set in the 70s.
Like the 70s, yeah. I remember those
exactly.
So
I really enjoyed X. I loved the 70s feel to the film, and the violence in that film, and that scene where the crazy lady is kind of having a moment with the song playing.
Yeah, that was pretty great.
The alligators.
It
was funny. It was
so going back to Saw, do you have a rating out of 10? If you want, I can do mine first.
Yeah, sure. If you want to go ahead.
Okay, all right. Unapologetically, it's a 10 out of 10. I know it's not a quality movie, but it lives in my heart. It does so many things right. The things it does wrong, I'll overlook forever. And the teenager me enjoyed it just as much as the adult in me enjoys it. So yeah, 10 out of 10.
Hey, that's completely valid, man. I mean, coming from someone who watched it when it came out, I just discovered it. I mean, the Saw franchise has always been around, but I just never got into it until you told me about the first one. And look, I don't feel like me giving it a rating really does justice to the film, because no rating really would. I mean, look, I can, objectively speaking, I'll give it a 7 out of 10. Let's just put it that way. And that's not because that's not a criticism for me by any means by saying it's a bad film. It's a great film. It paved, like I said earlier, it paved the way for the horror genre and for indie horror films, and really put the Saw franchise on the map and the whole slasher genre on the map.
Well, the slasher genre has been on the map for a long time before that.
I think it kind of revitalized it. Though,
for sure.
Up until that point, I don't think horror films were really doing that great. So culturally, it's a 10 out of 10 film. But if we're looking at it from a production point of view, it has its flaws, it has things, but I could overlook that. And that's not a bad thing. 7 out of 10 is still a good score for me. And I like I said, I don't feel like giving it a score really does justice to what it's achieved.
Right. I just wanted to challenge
achieved more
you.
than. No, that's fine. That's fine. I like to be challenged when it comes to rating films, because it's always a tough one, right? Mm-hmm. You can't always, like, my barometer of rating a film may not necessarily be the same as someone else. But that being said, the film, no review will really do justice. No rating will really do justice to this film, because this film's been around. It's kicked off a franchise. It's been a cult classic. Still is a cult classic. Halloween is, like, again, a period where this film receives immense popularity every year. So for that very reason, I think it's a very, very important film in the horror genre, in the indie horror genre, because that itself is quite a niche genre for horror films, like the Blair Witch and this. I would say they really hold up
very,
in that regard.
Culturally relevant.
Indeed. So that's what I feel about it. And the performances were all right. Yeah, I mean, they got Danny Glover in it.
Yeah, I forgot they got Danny Glover. Like, what was he doing?
The only
and Tobin Bell, of course. Yeah, he's a theater actor. He does a lot of theater work, and he appears
also
in a lot of horror films.
And the guy who played Zepp, he's in Fallout as well. He plays.
Yep. He did show up in Fallout. I was like, oh, it's Zepp.
Yeah, the only gripe I had with Danny Glover's character was his sudden obsession with the Jigsaw killer. Just you don't see that coming.
No.
But maybe if they had the time to develop his character more, it could have been a different story.
Could have been a whole thing. He needs his own movie series. We need some prequels with Danny Glover. Is he still around?
They don't give them ideas. They might just actually.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Do it. Let's do it. I'll direct
he's still
it.
around.
Let's do it.
You should pitch it.
Let's do it. All right, Danny. Now you're gonna have to eat some baked beans right here. This is your low point.
I wonder if they're actually baked beans, but good luck.
I have no idea.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Anything else? Any other final thoughts?
No. I think Saw is, like we said, it's a part of culture. I give it a 10 out of 10, but that's just because it's a part of who I am. Well, I'm obviously not a serial killer or anything, but it's the edgy teenager in me gives it a 10 out of 10, and I can't deny that. Like, talking to other people that are fans of horror, they'll dog on me, but that's fine. I don't really mind. Did you have anything in mind for our next discussion?
Yes, I did. I was hoping we review the next thing we do. We review the upcoming film Fall Guy, starring Ryan Gosling.
Okay, when does that come out?
And Emily Blunt. That comes out this Friday. So as of this recording, it's 1st of May, and it's about a stuntman. So, and it's directed by David Leitch, who directed the first John Wick film, and he did Deadpool 2.
Okay.
And he is a stuntman himself, who's turned into a director, alongside Chad Stahelski, who's gone on, obviously, to do the John Wick films as a director and has received great success. But yeah, The Fall Guy. The story goes as follows. After leaving the business 1 year earlier, battle-scarred stuntman Colt Seavers springs back into action when the star of a big studio movie suddenly disappears. As the mystery surrounding the missing actor deepens, Colt soon finds himself ensnared in a sinister plot that pushes him to the edge of a fall more dangerous than any stunt.
Ooh,
so that is
spicy.
Yeah.
I'm getting Ghost Rider vibes. I hope it's
it looks
cheesy.
fun.
It looks fun? Okay, that sounds good.
It looks fun.
All right.
Yeah.
And so if you do not want to be spoiled for that in 2 weeks, feel free to watch that movie before we spoil the hell out of it, because I'm not holding back. I'm taking notes. I'm going to be the guy in the back of the movie theater taking notes. That's how I'm going to work.
It's going to be great. It's going to be great. We'll see you then for that recording. Thank you for listening.
Absolutely. Later.